Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition, episode number 96 of the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast, Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 29, talking about and breaking down the swing of Juan Soto, young man himself, becoming a legend right before our very eyes. You bring in professional evaluator, successful business owner, former coach, friend, co host, the master, the man, Jake Epstein. Start talking, boy.
I'm here. I'm very happy to be here.
Sound it.
Another day on this earth.
Um, I
It'll
want to
be
make
cool
you.
to do Juan Soto.
I want to make you laugh. Jerome Haruska is the Nationals. That's far from a guarantee, by the way. I want to make you laugh. Jerome Haruska is the Nationals PA announcer, and all week long when I was preparing for this show, I kept in my head hearing him call out Juan Soto's name. He goes like Juan, like screams it, like Juan Soto. Like it's great, and the fans really eat it up.
Really?
Yeah, when Bryce Harper used to be with the Nationals, he used to go Bryce Harper, like really grind it, you know. But with Juan
Yeah.
Soto, he raises the decibels of his voice very slowly, and people really enjoy it. Jerome Maruska is
Huh.
very good at what he does. You're very good at what you do too. So let's get into Juan Soto here.
When was I supposed to laugh, Jim?
That's why I said that's why I made that comment earlier that
Okay, there it is.
it's
There it
far
is.
from a guarantee that you're going to laugh anything I say.
Yes.
That doesn't just go for you.
You should be a PA guy.
It goes for our entire listening audience and the entire human race. So let's start from the beginning. Juan Soto signed by the Nationals on July 2nd, 2015, at the age of 16, the tender age of 16. And he's turned into a guy who he signed for a big bonus. He was a bonus baby, if you will. And he's turning into a guy who making a $400 million contract in the range of a Mike Trout, for example, in the next couple of years. What do you think scouts saw in Juan Soto going back to when he was 16 and how they projected him that they got right in terms of the national scouting department and what they did right and what they saw in him to sign the caliber player of Juan Soto?
It was interesting. I actually saw a 16-year-old video of him that was sent to me a year or two ago. It was like, hey man, this was Soto. How would you have graded it out? At age, I think he was probably 14, maybe maybe 15. It was before he signed, and he would have been above average mechanically, but not as crazy as you would think he would be. Like Vlad, like Vlad. When I graded Vlad out, it was about as good as I've ever seen, and so that's why I've always kind of been on his side because I'm like, this guy just does it. But again, I'm grading mechanics a lot of the time. I'm not there. I'm not seeing work ethic. I'm not seeing determination or what he's like in a game setting. But again, he's probably 15 in those videos. What is he like on a day-to-day basis? How does he throw?
Right.
I don't see that part of it. So he would have been above average guy, he for sure on the grading scale, but I don't think he would have been, above average, above, all the other players, maybe his age. There could have been a handful that actually would have graded higher. So there was something there. There was some kind of intangible, the way he took pitches, the way he saw pitches, the way he reacted to pitches, some kind of presence. He commands great presence, when he steps into the box. That's what makes people great. Mechanics are wonderful because they help us reach our goal, but having great mechanics is just one piece of that cog that drives the great player. There's a lot of really, really great players that have, B average mechanics. And there's a lot of A mechanical guys that have, big league careers, but they're not all stars. So, what is it that makes the difference? Well, that's where you just don't know until you get them out there, you get them in competition, you see what they're like off the field, you look at their work ethic, you test their vision, what kind of IQ. I guarantee his baseball IQ was off the chart. Like he was probably taking extra bases when people weren't taking extra bases. He was probably one step ahead of everyone knowing where the outfielders were when he was on base, knowing, that ball that gets over the second baseman's head, is the second baseman going to get to it? Is the outfielder going to get to it? Those are instincts that are very, very difficult. You can try to teach those, but for somebody at a young age, it's not taught. It's just in their DNA. And that's really fun to watch. I played with guys like that growing up that have those instincts. And I'm like, well, how do they know to do that stuff? And then they end up, signing in the first round.
We've talked on this show about how Latin American players are very upper body centric first when they're very young, from ages 14 to 16. And you mentioned you graded out Juan Soto above average. I think that his teammate Victor Robles, for example, is still upper body centric. He still hasn't gotten rid of those habits to where his upper body leads his lower body. It should be vice versa, as we've talked about on this program. But with Juan Soto, when you graded him above average, was he lower body centric? Because I made a note here, and we're going to go over it in the mechanical breakdown. He sinks into his legs really, really well. And I don't think that's something that you can particularly change in him. You can't just say, okay, go from upper body centric to really sinking and using your legs and gaining that ground force. What did you see with him mechanically that you graded him out above average when he was 14?
It was definitely more lower body. Like his upper body was okay, because he was young too. So it's harder to have good upper bodies with weak muscles. His lower body was in it. It was athletic. It was aggressive. It powered his swing without leaving his upper body behind. So that's sometimes what happens with a lot of amateur players, U.S. players. And I wouldn't even say the 18-year-olds or the 17-year-olds. I'm talking about like the 12 and 13-year-olds that really drive. We spend a lot of time and energy here. Get into your legs, turn your hips, squish the bug back in the day. Everything's a turn, a pivot, a snap, whatever. And what happens is we do that with our big muscles, and then all our weak muscles get left behind, and that's where bat drag and casting comes in. So the good part about the international players is, it's much easier to add lower body later on. I mean, not super aggressive lower body, but it's easier to add lower body than to add upper body later on. I guess that's the best way to say it. Not that one's better than the other, but when you're trying to change or increase it. But yeah, Soto was a leg guy early, for sure, which stood out compared to most of the players, most of his peers at that time internationally.
When he was in the minor leagues, he once told his manager, I don't know if you have a comment about this, but he wasn't going to be there very long. I think it was at the AA level. He was sleeping at the time in the clubhouse on a blow-up mattress. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm not going to be here very long. And he wasn't. Do you think that, I don't know, just throwing this out there, that the Nats brass maybe heard that and they further felt assured that they have something special here?
Yeah, I mean, it's what was the story with Daniel Murphy at University of Virginia? It was something similar to that. Like, they all introduced themselves as, freshmen, the new freshmen coming in, and they were like, introduce who you are and whatever. And he was like, I'm Daniel Murphy. I hit third and play second.
Yeah, that was at the University of Jacksonville.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, was it Jackson? That's where he went?
Yeah. Yeah, you might be confusing him with Ryan Zimmerman.
Maybe Zimmerman. I'm probably confusing him with him. So anyway, yeah, I mean, some guys have that internal confidence, and we had guys. I played in college with guys that had that kind of confidence. And God, I hope he's listening to this podcast. I don't think does he have a son? Anyway, somebody came in like that freshman year, and we taped him to a wooden chair in his underwear and drove him all around campus.
We got to say who it is now. You can't leave us hanging there. You have to say who it is.
Paul Cooler. He's a great friend and a great dude. But
I wonder if he has a Twitter. Maybe I'll tweet him.
Paul's the best. So he had it was just great because we had an All-American right fielder. It was like a stud. I think he hit 30 home runs, 28 home runs 1 year in college. And then this freshman comes in and is like, yeah, I'm your starting right fielder. And, back in the day, there was more hazing and stuff like that. Always good fun.
Yeah. I don't know if tying a guy to a chair, though, is necessarily hazing, or if it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I've seen worse.
Yeah. It was, yeah.
Probably experienced worse too. Moving on to Juan Soto and some numbers here. Interesting to note present day with Soto. And this is from just last week, from April 14th to the 19th of this year. He went 4 for 19, which came out to a 210 batting average. And that was over a 5-game span. Now, at the same time, this is where the yo-yo effect comes in. He finished 9th in the National League over that time frame with a 464 on base percentage. So to me, this tells you a lot. What does it tell you, though, based off those two statistics, which are pretty much polar opposites of one another?
It means that water runs off his shoulders. You know, he doesn't dwell on one thing, right? He can move on. He knows that failure is part of this game, and he's confident in himself to keep swinging or keep getting on base somehow. And you can see that. You know, sometimes he's overconfident in the box. You really see his juices going. Like, this is a battle. Like, you know, he gets 500 battles every year, and he wants to win. Like, he doesn't want to hit 300. He wants to hit over 500. Like, he wants to win most of those battles. And that's just the way he's wired. And that's what makes him so special.
It tells me.
And his work ethic.
And I think to me, too, it tells me that he sees a lot of pitches and he's not going to chase really bad balls. On base percentage being where it is. And he's always been a big on base guy, and he walks a lot.
And some people just see things differently.
Right.
Some people see the ball slower, you know, and he had those hot streaks where it was like, oh man, everything looks like a beach ball. You know, everything looks like a 88 mile an hour fastball, 4-seam with no movement, even though it's not. And then all of a sudden you have those valleys where it's like, good Lord, you know, I am seeing 88 and it looks like a pea coming out of a, you know, out of a cannon. And what is going on? He probably sees those beach balls. He's probably able to slow that down a lot more than most players.
Right. And the clip we're going to look at today, and again on the YouTube page, this is a much better view than it is listen. Mechanical Breakdown series and the swing we're going to break down. It's his 100th career home run, which occurred on April 12th. And I got this from the Nationals Media Relations Department. His 465 on base percentage led Major League Baseball and was the highest in a full season since 2008. This was back in 2021. His 145 walks were the most in a season since Barry Bonds set the MLB record for base on balls with 232 in 04. It's a pretty good name right there. By the way, we're breaking his swing down episode 100, but that's a pretty good name and a category to be in when you are sitting right there with Barry Bonds.
Yeah, it also means Soto needs some support.
Right. Right.
I'd like to get somebody hitting behind him. That's what I'd like, that somebody fears. Because, I mean, that was the same thing with Bonds, right? If you're feared a lot more than the person on deck, they're going to face the guy on deck. So, but he's smart enough to realize that, and he's smart enough to keyhole pitches and not. Sometimes when they're pitching around us, you know, they still might be throwing us strikes, but they're either going to throw it and hit ball 7, you know, or ball 6.5 on the outside corner, or they're going to miss.
Right.
And so what happens a lot of times is, okay, I know they're going to throw me away. I'm going to sit on that pitch away. The count's 2-1. You know, oh, there it is. It's away. It's sinking away from me. It ends up being a pitch you're not going to hit well, right? You hit it off the end of the bat and should have taken it. And maybe the count was 2-2. Maybe it ends up being 3-1 because you chased a bad pitch. So he's good enough to kind of stay in the middle quadrant of the plate and stick to that plan and have the confidence to stick to that plan and not second guess his decisions.
Well, for more great analysis, be sure to follow Ep on Twitter at Epstein Hitting and Instagram. And of course, you can follow me for your humor, daily humor, laughs. I'll give you that look.
You can listen to Jim on the Comedy Central station on your XM radio.
At Jim Tara at Epstein. There's 2 of them, by the way. At Jim Tara on Sirius XM. We're giving you Sirius XM a free plug here. They don't even have our podcast. At Jim Tara at Epstein.
Is it not a monopoly? I mean, is satellite radio not a monopoly?
It is a monopoly, and they also own Pandora, so it's a big monopoly.
Oh.
Moving on here, we've mentioned Juan Soto and the drills that he does in spring training and the drills that he just does overall. I know you want to talk about that, so Have at it.
I
Soto,
do.
I call them, I have it titled here, the Soto drills, air quotes from me. Soto drills. Go right ahead.
Yeah. And we'll see when we get into the video breakdown here in a second. But if most people that watch baseball and know Juan Soto, they think of a guy who's got a big, wide base. He sits down. He sits behind the axis. He rotates fast. He sits back. He's launching balls all over the park. And they think of a guy that probably just turns and burns all the time.
Right.
Okay, even though he hits balls the other way, but that's what they think, just because that's his follow through, and that's the kind of the impression you get when you just watch him stay in the box. And then you watch the drills that he does, where he takes the knob straight down to the ball, like somebody tosses him a ball from the side, and he just pops it with the knob of his bat. That's what he wants his first move to be. And I'm like, that's so 180 degrees, because we'll see here, like he gets his barrel down quickly. He's a guy that wants to get his barrel down into the zone early. It's hard to keep it there. He does a really good job keeping it there. He's one of the few guys that's able to do that. And then you have other drills where he resists his lower body. So he almost hits across his body. He closes his stance so much so that his hips don't rotate. And then he just he smothers it. Like he kind of chops down a little bit with a closed front side. And to me, it's mind blowing, because that's nothing that shows up in a game.
Yeah.
Right. But then it makes sense to me, because I go back to the video I saw when he was 14 or 15, where his legs were just awesome. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't have to think about that. In fact, his legs probably get too big, and he probably gets too overly aggressive on pulling balls and hitting balls out of the park. So what does he have to do? He has to counteract that move. And it's just awesome to see that. Look, this is like arguably, the best hitter in baseball. What is he doing that works for him? Because it might be totally different. Like if I did those drills with my own kid, it would be the worst thing I could do, because she swings down. Like I can't get her to sit back more and finish higher and swing up more. Like her swing plane is just, luckily she plays softball, right? And the trajectory is really flat, but
right.
It's like, I just want her to swing up 5 degrees, and she can off the tee, but as soon as the ball comes at her, she's very zero and negative. So if I had her do the drills that Soto, that would be a total disservice. And if I had Soto do the drills I'm trying to do with somebody that has a flat swinger, that wouldn't work either. So it just is it's great. I don't know if it was his hitting coach. I don't know if it was just him.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. It shows. I think it shows his maturity, though, too, of how he goes about his business as a player. He understands what drills he needs to do to get himself ready and get better.
Yeah, know what works for you. I mean, there was Bryce Harper did a deal like that, was kind of a pregame. And it showed what he did before he steps out on the field, to take BP. It was I think he may have been on a knee too, and he's doing his bottom hand, and then he's doing his top hand, and he's kind of like chopping balls, and then he starts hitting more line drives, and then boom, okay, now I'm ready.
Right.
And it's just, everybody has their own routine, and know what your routine is and stick to it. And I always try to do that with all my online players. This is your new progression. This is your new routine. Every time you hit off a tee, off live, off a machine, anytime you're taking batting practice, going into a game, you do this, you stack it, you do this, and then boom, you're ready to go. And so I want all of my players to have that routine and that comfort level when they're going into games.
So let's play a little game here. Let's just say that you interview with Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo, right? Knock the interviews out of the park. Wouldn't be surprised if you did, quite frankly.
Who is their hitting coach? Is it still
it's not Kevin. It is not Kevin. I don't know who it is now.
It's not Kevin Long.
It is not Kevin Long. He is with the Philadelphia Phillies, in fact.
Phillies, that's right.
But let's say you knock the interviews out of the park, right? And you get a phone call late at night as you're doing this podcast. You say, Jim, hold on, put on the brakes. I got to take this call. It's from Dave Martinez, right? You get a call from Dave. He says, hey, Jake, Davey Martinez. Hey, Jake, Mike Rizzo. 2 guys on the line, right? They say, we want to offer you the position as Nationals hitting coach. All right, great. I guess, Jim, don't worry. I can still continue to do the podcast. So fast forward, you get to spring training. right? You're in the office shooting the shit with
Don't worry,
Davey,
Jim.
shooting the shit with Davey Martinez, right? And all of a sudden, you get a knock on the door. You turn to your left and you see a guy, good looking young man, white pearly teeth, smiling at you. And he says, "Hi, Poppy. It's Juan Soto." And you say, "Hey, Juan, let's you and I meet tomorrow in the coach's office. Let's talk one-on-one." What is that? The next day, fast forward 24 hours after we record episode 300 of the podcast. Maybe episode, I don't know, maybe episode 130. Who knows? Could be next season. The Nationals don't look very good this year. They might go through some more changes. What is that first conversation you're having one-on-one, talking about offense and hitting with Juan Soto?
So you're just getting a groundwork of what goes through his mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're trying to figure out, number one, his routine. What are you trying to do? You know, what is your plan? What are you trying to do in practice? What's your goal? Is it, and obviously you let them talk and you try to gather as much information from that conversation. Okay, I'm trying to hit balls the other way, or I'm trying to hit balls higher, I'm trying to hit balls lower, I'm trying to let the ball get to me, whatever it is. Okay, and how do you go about doing that? What's your process for doing that? Okay, great. You know, when you have issues, what are your issues? You know, I ask every player that. Like, when you're not going right, what is it that's not going right? Fly balls, pull side ground balls, swing over pitches, swinging under pitches. Are we late on good pitches? Are we fouling off good pitches? You know, what is your, you know, and then kind of figure out the plan. I can usually troubleshoot from there and make notes on, okay, when things start to go wrong, this is why, to nip that in the bud. You know, what are your thoughts on timing? You know, what are you trying to work on with timing? You know, what is your rhythm? I know because like he's a guy that sometimes has a step and sometimes he just gets wide and lifts and goes. You know, he tries to get real short with the ball. So, you know, really you're trying to get to know them on a level where, you know, how can I help them in their own lane? Because they're in this own lane that might speak a different language, you know, not just, you know, a different language, but
literally,
a different
but
hitting language.
Right.
Yeah. You know, that, okay, that makes sense to me. How can I interpret that to help that player? And, you know, and then other things, just, you know, personal things, family things, try to build confidence with that player so that they can trust you, maybe when it's not even about baseball and it's not even about hitting, because so much of this game you're spending with these players, you know, far more than you're spending time with your families. Sometimes they just need somebody to talk to, you know, and to know that and be on that level is sometimes just as important as, you know, what's our plan against the pitcher tonight?
Yeah. Well, everybody listening right now, do me a huge favor when you get a chance. Go to youtube.com and search the Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast and hit that subscribe button so you can watch our full episodes. You listen to previous episodes and watch clips and listen to previous clips. Do yourself a favor, okay? Just do it. It'll be good for you. The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast YouTube page. Thank you ahead of time. Appreciate it. We have a listener question before we get to our mechanical breakdown of Juan Soto, Mechanical Breakdown Series, Volume 29. This question comes to us from
29.
Mike. Yeah, 29. From Mike, follow-up from a few weeks ago, sent to us via Jimbo Podcast 21 at gmail.com. Dear Jim and Jake, my question about Trevor's Story, which the clip Jake did not show a few weeks ago, is this. It appears that he hits around the ball a bit since he really doesn't tuck his back elbow in. Would that be correct? That is from Mike. Great question, Mike. Thank you for the email via Jimbo Podcast 21 at gmail.com.
Well, you're on fire today.
I know.
Always. It is good to get listener questions. You know, I don't think there's a big leaguer that hits around the ball. I think Trevor Story's back elbow probably drops more than a lot of guys in Major League Baseball. In fact, it drops more than Vlad Jr., you know, thinking off the top of my head, or Bregman, or even Carlos Correa. So, you know, that really doesn't have to be part of staying inside the ball. that elbow slotting. You can stay inside the ball just by making sure your top hand doesn't open up. Okay, so if you keep it cocked, even though your elbow's in there, you can stay inside the ball. The problem is people don't really know what stay inside the ball is because there's so many terms about stay inside the ball, you know?
Yeah.
Your hands are really never going to go outside of the ball. You know, if you take it literally, you know, the hands aren't going to be outside of the plane of the pit or the trajectory of the pitch coming in. So typically what it means is the barrel stays inside the knob. So if your barrel if you start to rotate and the barrel stays inside the knob, then when you release it, the barrel does go outside the knob and you square up the ball. You could say hitting around the ball, you know, would really just be somebody that's early that flips their top hand over. So I would say that his elbow has nothing to do with him hooking a ball. I'm trying to think of that question again. He said,
he really doesn't tuck his back elbow in.
Yeah.
It appears that he hits around the ball a bit since he really doesn't tuck his back elbow in. Would that be correct? That's his question. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, the back elbow, it's always, it's when, you know, it's when that elbow turns in. I guess it's when the elbow drops. If it drops early, you're pretty much going to dump the barrel and lose everything. If it drops late, but it's got to drop, what I don't know is if it really drops in the clip he's talking about. I'm trying to pull that clip up here real quick.
While you do that, I want to remind everybody
it was a home run. Yeah.
Email us, JimboPodcast21.
And that pitch was away from him. That's probably why his elbow still came down to his ribs. Yeah, I wouldn't call that hitting around the ball. If you hit around the ball, you're pretty much going to hit it on a 15 or less degree launch angle, and you're going to hit the top outside of the ball.
Yeah.
So if you hit a home run with backspin, you know, it's definitely not hitting around the ball.
All right. Well, great question from Mike. We do appreciate it. Thank you. If anybody has questions, of course, comments, concerns, criticisms, we don't guarantee they'll get on the air. They'll get on the show, but questions certainly will. Email us jimbopodcast21@gmail.com. All right. I'm ready to go with why I've been waiting. I'm rearing back, ready to go and get into this breakdown.
Okay.
Juan Soto, volume 29. Here we go.
All right. So we see Juan Soto. This was home run number 100. You can see it went a shy of 451 feet at 112.5 miles an hour. So he hit it pretty good. We'll call it that. But if we break this down, we'll look at his stride. So this one, he actually picks up his foot. Remember, I mentioned earlier that he doesn't always do that. Sometimes he starts really wide. This one, he's picking up his foot. So here's one thing that I really like is as he brings his foot, I'm going to get to the furthest back he brings his foot. So I'm going to mark that when he has his foot in the air. That's his heel. And then I'm going to also mark the back of his head. Okay. And then we're going to play this out and bring him all the way to when his heel plants. Okay. So we're going to bring him to heel plant. And you can see his foot moved, his heel moved that far. I don't know how far that is. And his head only moved this far. If I could bottle this up and provide it to everyone that I teach, I would try to do that. His head moved about 20%, 25% of how far his front foot moved. This is how we stay behind the ball. This also, he's not collapsing though. That's the best part of this. Notice how his front shoulder is still down. I can't tell you how difficult this is. Usually I try to get players when their front foot lands. I'm going to bring them to heel plant now. If I draw a vertical line, notice how I said try to get my players because it's not that easy. Okay, if I draw a vertical line from the middle of his head, it's over his left hip, it's over his back hip. That's really, really good. Okay. Also, notice how his front shoulder is still lower than his back shoulder. The combination of those two is very, very difficult. We spend a lot of time doing dry swings trying to get into that position. Okay, but that gives you a chance to stay behind the ball and not lunge. It's going to give you a chance on breaking balls to stay behind the ball if you have good extension, and you can use extension to save your swing if you're early. Okay, so great heel plant position. If you notice, you know, we've done, I don't know how many, 28 other of these. Okay, and you can see his back knee is coming in, but he didn't get crazy with his lower body. Like if you look at Mookie Betts' lower body, way more aggressive than this. Okay. His rookie best upper body probably even closed more than this. This is good, but this isn't like crazy. His back foot is still flat on the ground. I kind of like that. Even though the knee has come in, his back foot's still flat on the ground. Notice his base, right? We talk about this a lot, especially every one of my online members. What do we talk about? The base needs to be a couple inches wider than your inseams. His is more than a couple inches wider than his inseam, okay? Like his base is wide. It's probably 36 to 37 inches wide. His inseam is probably 32, 33, 34 at the most. Okay, so wonderful position here at heel plant, front shoulder down, head behind the center line. If we look at his top hand, it's right about at the bottom of his ear. Wonderful. Okay, now we're going to have him get to his short approach. And again, my favorite part, as we all know from the 28 other analysis, his elbow separation when he turns. They turn together. Okay, he's not smashing the elbows together. He's not dropping his elbow underneath his hand, right? Very vertical right here with the knob and his elbow. And as his back elbow comes down, his front elbow moves forward at the same rate. Totally crucial to being a successful hitter, regardless of age, right? Like if you could do that at age, I think we had a writer, somebody wrote in from Northern Virginia.
Tom, yeah.
Yeah, Tom. And so Tom's probably watching this and listening to this. Like his son, I'm trying to think how old. I think he's 8. Like he's so young. He's the youngest kid in there. He's so short to the ball. Like this kid's never going to have to change. 8 years old. Like all he's got to do is play baseball and get timing because his mechanics are so good already. Okay. But he gets to a very similar position to this. Notice how the back comes right down next to his shoulder. Notice how that head is staying totally stable. We talk about his back shin getting low. You know, he gets off his backside, but he's not going crazy with his back foot. Okay. Why doesn't his back foot move? Oh, that's so good. It's better than I thought it was. It's only about 3 inches. The reason his back foot doesn't move too much, and for those of you out there, you know who you are, that move your back foot too much. I worked with 3 of them this week. You got to get more weight on your backside to do it. You gotta, when you get to heel plant, you gotta keep your head over your back hip. You gotta do that. If your head is here, Chris Taylor's is here. I'm not gonna say it's wrong, but you better be really good at sitting behind after that, okay? So this is just a good way to cheat, to stay back. If your head stays back of center, typically there'll be more weight in your back leg. If there's more weight in your back leg, your foot's still gonna release and move, but it's not gonna move as much. You look at his front leg straightening out through contact, doesn't get fully straight until about his power V position. He doesn't get full top hand extension here. Okay, he still hits this ball. Where does he hit it? Pardon me. So he hits it about right at his front ankle bone. And think about this, everyone out there. Okay, this is probably out in front for him because remember how wide he was? Okay, he's probably a couple inches too wide for his body. Not that this is bad, but if he had a normal base where his base was like the same length as his leg, so it's pretty much where I drew that. That line there is probably a similar length as his inseam. That might even be too long there. So think if his front foot was like this, right? His front leg was like that. That's what most guys look like. Okay, and this would be his instep. And this would be his pyramid, kind of like this. Okay. Now notice where he would make contact. It would be out in front of where I drew that line. Okay, so everybody's out in front is different based on how wide their base is. Okay, if you're a wide base person, and I love it, you have to let the ball get to behind your front toes. Okay, if you're a narrower base person, you have to hit balls in front of your front toes. Okay, so it's not the same for everybody. You have to know who you are as far as your legs are concerned. You can see his back elbows growing as well, meaning before contact, his top hand, his arm is close to, what is that, 198 degrees. Okay, and then a frame after that, when he makes contact, it goes from 98 to 120, which is exactly what I like. That's funny how that worked out. 120, and then a frame after 120. So it went from 98 to 120 to 133. Okay, it's growing. He's extending. He's punching through. His left palm is still up after contact. And then he finishes his swing. And then if you look at the end of his swing, you're like, good Lord, like, look how low his back shin is. Look, he's on his front heel, like his front toes are off the ground. Would you teach somebody to do that? No. Why does he do that? Because he's wide. Like he's really wide. And it's probably very difficult to keep your toes on the ground when you're that wide. Okay. Plus his front foot's closed. You know who else had a front foot closed like that? The guy we're going to do on our 100th episode, right? Barry Bond. He had a closed front foot, but aggressive hips. So what happens to your front foot when it's closed and your hips exploded open? You end up spinning on your front heel. Okay, I get it. Happens. Do you know how many coaches, amateur coaches, would be like, Juan, you can't hit that way. Juan, you're too wide. Juan, you can't rotate on your front heel.
A lot of these coaches sound the same. They have the same voice, which is a little,
no, but it's
little
like
strange to me.
You know, we can let them do it. I think if we pride ourselves on one thing at the lab, it's we really work around a player's natural physique and their flexibility and their style, and we try not to get in the way of that. We try not to change that. If you hit the ball 95 miles an hour and your back foot comes off the ground, but you consistently can square up a 90-mile-an-hour pitch shooting out of a machine with movement, buddy, let your back foot fly off the ground. Like I'm not gonna stress that. So, you know, let's not make everybody the same. So let's fast forward a little more because we have a different view. Ooh, now we get to look at Juan's timing. How great. So this is priceless. I want you to watch his front foot. What does Shooter McGavin say? Here's a free lesson. Come on, Jim. Tell me you at least watch Happy Gilmore.
I don't know line by line. I've seen it. I don't know line by line.
I'll prep you a little more. It was a little after your time. I'm sorry, it's a little before your time.
Maybe.
So if you watch Juan's heel and look at where the ball is with the pitcher right there. Okay. Then the pitcher brings his arm up. What does Juan do? I think I'll bring my foot up. And then the ball is released right about there. Here's the ball right out of the hand. Watch his foot. Is it still going up? No, it's on its way down. Okay, that's the key. You have to get your foot going early. This is the biggest problem with young players. He's picking his foot up well before the pitcher even brings his arm up. He's starting the process. And that way, when the ball is released from the hand, all he has to do is drop his foot. If we're lifting our foot at that time, life is going to be very, very difficult. Something that I try to work with all my players every single week is, and I know I beat this horse every single episode of getting going early in fly. I worked with a kid yesterday. We'll give Topher a shout out because he's the only Topher I've ever worked with in my life. And Topher was on fire. He set his distance record by like 15 feet yesterday. He broke his velo record by 5 miles an hour. And I saw him like a month ago. Like he was on fire. What did we do? We started stepping earlier, which allowed him to complete his weight shift. That's all we did. And he picked up 5 miles an hour of exit velocity. So very, very important to get going on time and monitoring that. So that is the end of the Juan Soto portion of this video. If you would like more information, tune in to the show itself.
Oh, very good. Okay, I thought you were going to promote see now next week you have to promote the YouTube page.
No, that's out of my element.
Okay.
But you usually have questions. And
you got to stretch the bandwidth of your. You got to stretch the bandwidth of your skills, podcasting skill set a little bit. Can't stay in one same place, right?
This is true. No, you're right.
I do have a couple of observations, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
So he sinks into his legs very well. That's very, very obvious. You mentioned that very astutely a few times there. But this idea that he just launches and has this huge uppercut swing. I think that is becoming more and more of a myth and a farce with each year that passes. A couple of statistics I just want to pass your way. His launch angle ranks, this is this season, 2022. His launch angle ranks 140th out of 182 qualified hitters across Major League Baseball at 7.2. Last year in 2021, a full season, he ranked 120th at 5.8. So here's my question to you. Is this more of a case study where attack angle at the end of the day is actually more important than launch angle? Now, another example I want to give you here, more context. In 2021, last season, full season, Ozzie Albies of the Braves had a higher launch angle. In fact, he had a higher launch angle than a lot of power guys, most hitters in the entire league. Okay. And so to me, you can't say that he has more power than Soto or has a bigger power ceiling, more of a power ceiling than Soto, right? I don't think so. So my question to you, and more of an opinion, I guess, lack of a better term, maybe launch angle and attack angle, maybe attack angle is being overlooked here in the way, and launch angle is getting in the way of that. We're looking more at launch angle and focusing so much on that when it comes to a lot of these hitters, and we should be focusing more on their attack angle. And I think Juan Soto is a great example of that.
Yeah, I mean, launch angle is what it is. It really is. It's a result. I mean, do I want to hit more balls in the air? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that's great. But there's just, for instance, Albies gets pitched from the left side.
Yeah.
A lot of four-seam fastballs at the belt. Like, that's where they pitch him. So what does he do with them? When he misses it, he pops it straight up.
Right.
On a 50-degree angle.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, that's his miss. It's a straight up pop up. So now you're going to average a 50-degree pop up with, then he hit the 20-degree line drive versus Soto, who might roll over one, right, and then hit one at 30. And now all of a sudden, his average, his rollover is negative, and maybe now his average is only 10 or 11 degrees. So you could have players that swing up a lot, but they don't have a super high launch angle because they top spin or hit a lot of pull side ground balls. And then you have a lot of people that have real flat level swings that pop balls straight up and have a really high launch angle on their outs versus rollovers for their outs. So yeah, man, just let the launch angle go. I mean, it's great. Like, you want to hit balls in the air. Who doesn't want to hit a line drive?
Yeah.
Like 15 to 30 degrees would be great. Guys that are all about launch angle, they're not trying to hit balls 50 degrees in the air. They're trying to stay in that 15 to 30 degrees. So yeah, attack angle I think is totally crucial. Attack angle is, for what you're trying to do. And Albies, I don't know, but if he's a flat swinger, which I don't really think he is on the left side, but if you take a flat swinger that has, say, a 5-degree attack angle, they could cut a lot of fly balls, like backspin a lot of high fastballs into fly balls, or even breaking balls into fly balls. And they'll have, even though they have a low attack angle, they could still have a higher launch angle. That could be an Albies. I mean, I don't know.
Sure.
I haven't looked at him enough. I like his right hand swing a lot. His left hand swing, not quite as much. But yeah, it's like, what does Soto do well? Is he on plane? Is he within a couple degrees, his attack angle within a couple degrees of the incoming pitch?
Right.
And then if he is, and he hits line drives, great, let's not mess with it. Or, wow, really, we should hit balls a little higher. Okay, how about we keep your attack angle where it is, and you just think about sinking a little more. He can't, but if we're talking about another player, or getting to the bottom half of the ball. So your misses are the bottom half, but you're not necessarily like dropping your barrel to get to the bottom half. Keep your plane, your attack angle to say.
But this is a guy, and maybe, I have one more question I want to ask you. Very important as we wrap up the show, but maybe we can debate this, not so much debate, but discuss it some other time. But Juan Soto, the reason people say he launches is because he literally puts balls into the third deck. He did it in 2019 in Philadelphia, did it last year in 2021 at Citi Field. I mean, Philadelphia's a bandbox, Citi Field, not so much, but he put it into the third deck. So people right away look at that and say, well, his launch angle has to be, 20 something degrees. Yeah. And it's not. It's just not. So that tells me right there, no matter where the pitch location is, because I think he can hit any pitch in any location, no matter where that is, his attack angle is always where it needs to be, and it's on point.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, in order to hit a ball in the third deck, you got to hit the bottom of it.
Right. Yeah.
Like you got to hit the bottom half. So how does he get to the bottom half? Does he collapse his backside? No, he just gets to the bottom half. Like maybe he sees it. Maybe his depth perception and the way that he sees pitches in space, he sees it a quarter of an inch below where it really is, you know? And so he's constantly hitting the bottom half, but obviously he's not if his launch angle is, you know, his average launch angle is under 10. So when you hit a home run, you hit a home run, right? And he hits them hard, but I don't think he's a guy that goes up there trying to launch balls. And the reason I say that is just based on his pregame routine and the drills that he does. I think he's trying to hit the ball hard, but his natural leg action and how low his center of gravity is, how low he gets to the ground, he's going to be under more pitches just with his body, and he's going to run into the bottom half of the ball.
I think my yearly 2022 hitting mission is going to be proving launch angle wrong.
Yeah,
proving
I
it to be a
really
farce.
Cool. And don't get me, and I like using launch angle as a tool, because I try to get put. Hey, let's be within this range. Okay, we're going to work high fastballs here. Let's work in this range. We're going to work low fastballs. Let's see if we can get them up a little bit to make sure we're not, you know, hitting everything in the ground. So to use launch angle as a tool with a HitTrax or a Rapsodo or a flight scope or whatever you're using, TrackMan, is great. But just saying, oh, I want to increase my launch angle, I don't think that's the right term to use. So I think you're right. I think what you did, and I don't say this often, Jim.
No.
I'm about to compliment you.
Yeah.
But what you did with Soto and Albies was fantastic.
I wish you would compliment my sense of humor, because that would take me a lot further in life.
Sirius XM channel 416.
Jim.
Comedy with Jim.
Scott Greenstein, Sirius XM. Hi, Scott. How are you? Good. We want to hire you on. Great. What channel are you putting me on? 625. What?
Hey man, still a channel.
No,
that was, but you proved a great point.
Right. So that's just the beginning of me proving launch angle to be a farce in 2022. So buckle up, people. One final note.
Wait.
Actually, a question I have for you. I was going to ask about Miguel Cabrera and compare him to Juan Soto. I'm going to cross that off the script, prep, whatever. I'm going to cross that off because I have something more important I want to ask you. Juan Soto, the Nationals are trying to lock him up. Let's just say they lock him up long-term for $800 billion. Okay. My question about the Nationals now, looking at Juan Soto, he's going to be the centerpiece of that lineup. He's going to be the centerpiece this year. He's going to be the centerpiece next year. And then if they re-sign him or any team he really goes to, he's going to be the centerpiece of any lineup. My question, though, as it pertains to that, with Juan Soto being that key player, what is now that team's, and we'll use the Nationals just for argument's sake, what is the team's offensive identity with Juan Soto as your centerpiece? Keep in mind all of the things that Juan Soto brings to the table, from the walks, on base percentage, seeing pitches, hitting home runs, everything. Juan Soto's the centerpiece, and you build out from there. What's the team's offensive identity?
You need other guys with high on base percentages, and then you need a guy that can drive and run. So you want on base percentage guys ahead of him as much as possible. Doesn't mean they have to hit 300. They just got to get on base, so that when he hits the ball hard, he's going to hit a ton of doubles too. He's going to drive and run. And then for when they walk him, you need to have guys that hit fourth and fifth that are good RBI guys that are clutch performers. Again, it doesn't matter what their average is, but they're guys that thrive in the moment when there's people on base and the fans are feeling it. You know, there's a little bit more tension in the stadium. So that's definitely what you would have to do. You'd have to, support him so that he has protection, but also allow him to drive and run. And like any other identity, you have to have that swagger. You know, you have to have people with similar. If you can find similar personalities as him, guys that are so eager to perform and so eager to show the world how good they are. Holy cow, will that spread like wildfire within a lineup and within an organization.
Yeah. And again,
that's
the reason,
a true leader.
And then the reason I bring up that question about an offensive identity, a lineup's identity. Is because if you have that centerpiece and you build out from there, now you're giving yourself a better opportunity for Juan Soto to reach, for example, Juan Soto, like that, a guy like that, or a Trout to reach their full potential. Why? Because they're getting more pitches to hit. If you have guys that, like you said, on base percentage or whatever it may be, if they have those attributes and they bring their own skill set to the table, that's making Juan Soto better and giving him an opportunity to succeed at the highest level.
Yeah, and you have to, and hopefully it's a better situation than Trout's in.
Right.
Or maybe that'll change in time. Otani's pretty good.
The Angels are pretty good this year. By the way, have we done a Trout mechanical breakdown? I don't think we have.
I don't think we have.
No.
And it's goofy too. It'll be good.
That'll be good. We will get to him. Next week though, we're doing another mechanical breakdown. Guess who? It's a test. This is a test for you.
Next week?
Yeah. You haven't looked at the topics list, did you?
I'm failing.
Cedric.
Who does he play for?
Oh, well, I said his first name. Cedric Mullins next week.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that one.
Yeah. Cedric Mullins next
week. I'll
look
soon.
Mechanical Breakdown Series Volume 30 as we inch closer to episode 100, starring Barry Bonds.
Ooh. Right on.
That's next week. Mechanical Breakdown Series Volume 30, Cedric Mullins. What do you got coming up at the lab, BCS?
Ooh, preparing for summertime fun. So we have moving our high school guys into kind of a different class where they're going to train 3 days a week. And after their hitting training, they're going to work out with Coach Price, he's our strength and conditioning guy that we got in from Rutgers last year. So it's going to be like a full-fledged, our college and high school guys are going to go through pretty much a college off season, almost like what you would do in the fall at a college. So we're excited to launch that and get that going. And then for the younger guys, obviously we're going to do semi-private camps. None of the big, where they get all the kids out there. There's 60 kids and everybody's standing in line. So we're going to do kind of like six person camps, mini camps all over, defense, throwing, hitting, and movement stuff too. So that's it. Just preparing for summer.
Very fun. So for more information, log on to the lab, bcs.com. All right. Well, that's about it. We're just about done here. Do you have anything else you'd like to add, sir?
No. He's not the best colored man in the business for nothing.
Man of a few words. Tough loss for the Brewers on Friday night. That's for sure. Speaking of Mr. Euchre himself, he's probably tough loss there for the Brewers on Friday night. All right. We will talk to everybody next week. Be sure to subscribe, YouTube page, The Lab Epstein Hitting Podcast. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.